Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey. Inflation is tightening its grip on Filipino households and is showing at the smallest points of sale. Sari-Sari stores across the country are seeing a sharp decline in sales of cigarettes and alcohol, traditionally considered high-margin staples, as consumers cut back. With power, meat, and transport costs rising, what does this mean for the last-mile retail economy? Today on Follow the Money, we speak with Ibba Bernardo, Chief Marketing Officer of Packworks, a company digitizing Sari-Sari stores, to unpack how shifting consumer habits, inflationary pressure, and policy responses are reshaping the backbone of Filipino retail. Ibba, good to see you and welcome to Follow the Money.
Thank you for having me, Raine. It's a pleasure.
All right, so we should start on how inflation is hitting the Sari-Sari store consumers. It's really, you put out the data, cigarettes and alcoholic beverages, they're seeing a decline in sales. To what do you attribute this?
Well, one, definitely inflation. The prices of goods are going up across the board in the Sari-Sari stores. But a multiplier of that is the sin tax, which adds an additional layer that, again, amplifies the impact of the costs. There are a lot of elements when it comes to the pricing of Sari-Sari stores now. When you look at, you were saying we're at 1.8, I think, our inflation rate.
As of March, yeah.
As of March.
It's supposed to be the slowest in many years, and yet...
But depending on the product category, like milk, for example, wherein the products are imported. A lot of the raw mats are imported. You need the metal, all of these things. The inflationary impact of milk, the prices increase tremendously. But cigarettes, on the other hand, they're locally manufactured. The plants are here. It's a mix of sin tax and inflation.
What's interesting about Packworks is you're able to see the data from the Sari-Sari stores. Are you seeing in the Sari-Sari stores this decline in the sin products? And relatedly, are you seeing an uptick perhaps in the demand for certain other products?
So I'm pretty sure you have a time machine, or you're just that great of a journalist, because so we release these kinds of like little articles and on the data we learn from Sari-Sari stores. We've got an awesome team just kind of looking for tidbits like the impact of the sin taxes, inflation, Valentine's Day, etc. Our next research paper is really looking at, all right, we've got cigarettes and brandy going down. What is picking up? And then I guess we'll break the news here. It's energy drinks. It is iced tea, sugar drinks, and well, I'll share with you the data that we'll be releasing very, very soon.
We're really looking forward to that. It's not unique to the Philippines, actually. Perhaps the products are, but there is always a balance of certain products, like say sin products, and current other product lines. So, for example, if consumers are faced with a level of uncertainty, just like the Trump tariffs are bringing not just to the U.S. but across the world, we're seeing an uptick, for example, in the sales of cosmetics in certain areas. Do you expect that, you deal with the FMCGs and the big brands and bringing them to the Sari-Sari stores and making sure they're fully stocked up. Do you expect that there might be a bigger demand for these, not necessarily Sari-Sari store standard products?
So from recent history, where you had this kind of uncertainty was during the pandemic.
Yes.
And I guess I've never talked to nanays about the impact of Trump, our nanaypreneurs in Sari-Sari stores. But it might be. I'm really curious about how they feel about what's happening around the world. But with the brands, on the other hand, I can see them looking for further efficiencies in their supply chain, right? Because that's something they can control. If raw mats and tariffs are impacted, the only thing that they can really streamline are how efficient they can get their products to the consumer. And a majority of transactions happen in the Sari-Sari store level. And I guess, I mean, tooting my own horn, that's where we come in, right? We connect the brands to the Sari-Sari store by providing digital tools that help the Sari-Sari store with their business. And a byproduct of that is efficiency.
And off air, we were talking about how nimble Sari-Sari stores are in being able to track demand, being able to ready the supply as demand picks up. So for example, during the pandemic, you saw demand for inks and computer tables just when, maybe the likes of the online retailers aren't able to reach them.
So have you ever wondered when you're, walking around and you see a street and there are 5 Sari-Sari stores there? And you're like, how can 5 stores compete and survive? And let's say it's a neighborhood you live in, and every day for years, you still see those 5 Sari-Sari stores right next to each other. And because they've been around for a long time, they must be doing something right. And that's because they're naturally nimble and entrepreneurial. A Sari-Sari store is the easiest business to set up. You just got to go to the grocery, open up your window, and you're good for business. But it's the hardest to be successful in because there's no moat. Everybody has a window. Everybody can go to the grocery. So the ones that are successful, one of the characteristics is they're very entrepreneurial. They're looking for pain points that they can solve in the community without going head to head with their neighbor, because competition between them would kill their tiny business, diba? So maybe my Sari-Sari store sells coffee and junk food because I obviously like it. Yours is maybe healthier snacks or like hygiene products. And then the one next to it would feature, maybe they have a little butcher shop and they have a little ref, right? Maybe they sell hot dogs. So they naturally adapt to adversity and find opportunity in these adversity.
Ibba, as you mentioned health, and we started off the discussion talking about SIN products. When you have a decline in the sales of SIN products, do you see this as a trend towards healthier consuming healthier products, or is this an economic red flag?
So I hope, again, we get, the data is what tells me the story. And we have 300,000 Sari-Sari stores in our network. And we've created a panel, and we get near real-time data from this. And then we kind of clean up the data, and we look for, our team looks for stuff that's scientifically relevant. So I can tell you definitely these SIN products are going down. And alternatively, there are other products that are increasing. But I don't know without going down to the store level to find out. I hope. But is there an economic impact? We know that from a health perspective, the government spends millions dealing with the impact of tobacco and alcohol. I mean, it's why we have PhilHealth. Oh, by the way, we're working with this cool group that allows Sari-Sari stores now so that you can access PhilHealth through these mega Sari-Sari stores. So, yes, I think it's a positive thing. I used to be a smoker that these are going down. But is there an economic impact? I don't think so, because overall you can see sales in the Sari-Sari stores growing in other categories.
With, the higher cost of fish and meat and electricity, do you feel that the Sari-Sari stores are absorbing a lot of these extra costs, or are they facing shrinking margins, or are they able to immediately raise their prices?
Sadly, they can't afford to absorb costs. And they're not like an SM or a Pure Gold, right? And I don't think even SM would likes absorbing costs. They really pass it on. So the more uncertainty you have when it comes to business, tariffs, inflation, the more rapidly prices change in the Sari-Sari store, almost on a day-to-day basis, which makes it incredibly difficult for a Sari-Sari store owner, which is actually one of the reasons we're successful and they use our app is because they're able to monitor it. They don't have to remember how much they got something at. So, no, I don't. The costs are transmitted to the consumer.
But are profit margins growing?
Profit margins in the stores that are in our network are. We work with brands because it's digitized. Brands now have visibility on the last mile, on the smaller stores. So they're able to provide hundreds of millions of pesos worth of promos to these stores. These are basically rebates and discounts. And so the store now has access to what the big boys have.
Do you see other categories apart from the SIN products where sales might have registered an unusual uptick? You mentioned that there's a possible premiumization of these Sari-Sari stores. You're not necessarily just getting things by tingi, but you're actually getting higher value products.
Yeah. Well, during Valentine's Day.
On a seasonal basis.
On a seasonal basis. And this kind of blew my mind because, again, we're always looking at this outlier kind of data, stuff that's interesting. And we saw a massive tick in Toblerone sales and Cadbury sales. And
so
even
the expensive chocolates.
Expensive chocolate on Valentine's Day. So, I mean, for us, Toblerone is something that's fancy, diba? Like somebody comes from abroad. When somebody gives you Toblerone, it's like, wow, social. I even went to a Sari-Sari store where they're selling those big chupa chups. I've never seen anyone buy it, but they're selling them. That means there is a market. But going back to the impact of inflation, I just remembered one of the data points is that the amount that is being sold to a customer per basket is the same because we're able to track each individual basket. But the frequency of the visit to the store has increased. So if you buy an average of 500 pesos every week in the Sari-Sari store, you're going there twice a week now. And you're spending that same 500. So imagine the time, the effort. So there we can see that the impact of inflation when it comes to purchasing habits.
Right.
It's not increasing.
Right.
But frequency is increasing.
Meaning you're spending the same amount, you're going more. That means that your basket is actually smaller. Is that it? You're able to buy less items with the same amount of money, but because you still need those items, you go back.
Well, I guess because we're able to track over years the purchasing habit, we know that the absolute amount in a year is the same. But the frequency to reach that absolute amount has increased.
So what does that mean for the consumer? How much is the average transaction per week, per visit, or like per month, perhaps?
We have Sari-Sari store data. And again, there are different types of Sari-Sari stores. Certainly. So in our network,
you're dealing with a top-tier Sari-Sari stores.
Yeah, the best.
A, the biggest ones.
We call them mega Sari-Sari stores.
300,000 of them.
Well, so it's a hub and spoke model. So we have the mega Sari stores, and they are B2C and B2B. So they serve, they started out as a small Sari-Sari store, and they were able to grow. Because they're incredible entrepreneurs. And now they serve around 50 to 100 C-level Sari-Sari stores. And that's all part of our platform. So for the mega Sari stores, we provide everything you would need. It's like an ERP, like a NetSuite, like the most high-tech tools, right? Salesman app, inventory, sales tracking, loyalty points. They're basically like SM, happy to serve. They have all of the tech. And then for the smaller Sari-Sari stores, we have loyalty points, inventory financing. So they can go to the Sari-Sari store and say, hey, I've been buying from you for a long time. Can I just get these products? Because I can sell it out, and then they'll pay instantly because we have a financing partner doing it. So we have inventory financing. So that's kind of how our ecosystem works.
And a lot of people would say, it's a Sari-Sari store, small prices, small items, small products, right? But it's not, you're going on the ground, and that's not what you're seeing right now. Like Sari-Sari stores have become hubs of distribution that even the likes of online retailers aren't able to reach. They've become a credit system, that maybe the average transaction might be small, but yung palista, the amounts are getting bigger. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm kind of a sci-fi geek, right? So I grew up watching Star Trek and imagining this incredible future with technology. I think somewhere we took a horrible turn, but I still imagine these stores being stores of the future. We're in one pilot, we're working with Starlink, and we've made them the telco for their community. In another, we've made them into a pharmacy. In another, we're hoping in areas like Basilan, where you don't have modern trade, the pure golds and the SMs, we can make the Sari-Sari store into something that, in the future, you wouldn't need that. Wherein you can get all of your products, their last mile delivery, you can order on online platforms, and this is where it gets delivered, and you pay there. So it can be, everything.
Still lots to discuss, but we need to pause for a few reminders. When we come back, we'll ask Ibba and Packworks, when the last mile economy starts cracking, is inflation just a spark, or is it exposing a much deeper problem? Stay on BNC and follow the money. Welcome back to Follow the Money. We're still with Ibba Bernardo, CMO of Packworks. Ibba, digital platforms like Packworks give you visibility into hyper-local trends. What does real-time data tell you about the inflation's invisible toll, perhaps, on the poorest consumers? Perhaps testimonial, from residents living in or near the Sari-Sari stores with whom you work?
So inflation, it's not something that when you talk to a Sari-Sari store, Nay, ano yung impact po ng inflation sa inyo? No. But you're right, it is like the data tells a different story, right? And you can really see it when it comes to, and now it's kind of steadied. But earlier in 2024, when we were looking at like 6% inflation, the impact of that in some of their products was almost 16 to 20%. Because those products are more susceptible to the impact of inflation, because it's because more imported products are more impacted. Or if we were talking about that earlier, there are other materials that are required that, again, are impacted by inflation in other countries as well. So it's really, you can see it in how they gravitate more to our app, because it helps them understand their margins better. Can you imagine if you're running a store And every single day, prices are changing.
Right, of course.
So,
When you mentioned earlier that people are going to the stores more often with the same transaction value, does that mean that their purchasing power is actually increased?
it has remained steady. And I guess if you're looking at it hasn't kept up, I guess, with inflation. But again, I'm not the inflation. I'm not an economist,
Certainly,
right?
certainly.
But so I know the data,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of like a guesstimate from my end.
There was one story that we encountered where it said that some Sari-Sari stores are shutting down throughout the country. Do you see that happening? And does your data actually tell you that?
Yeah, actually, it does. Sari-Sari stores are incredibly vulnerable. And we see Sari-Sari stores closing down for many reasons. It could be mostly financial, or it could be somebody getting sick, or it could be a typhoon, or numerous reasons why. But the ones in our network are very resilient. Again, they're incredible entrepreneurs. And we see them after nakabangon sila. After 6 months, they'll start up again. And then they'll continue until something happens. Because sadly, there's no real support system for these Sari-Sari stores. There's not like, it would be awesome if there was like GSIS or SSS or something, right, that could support these micro entrepreneurs, but there isn't.
Among the discounted products that you supply to these Sari-Sari stores, could you share with us like how much part of it is FMCGs, how much part is perhaps other product categories? What takes up the majority of that?
Well, right now, majority of, I would say 90% of what we do are partnering with big FMCGs.
Sure. Okay.
Because, as the name, fast-moving consumer goods, it's what the Sari-Sari stores need the most help with. But we're also partnered up with like Mediclick. They're an online pharmacy, and we've done pilots wherein Sari-Sari stores are, because we know that they do sell paracetamol, Imodium.
Over the
Maybe you have a
counter.
tummy ache and you're in the beach, you're like, oh, let's go to the Sari-Sari store. But they're really not allowed to. And they buy these at SRP. Like they'll go to the pharmacy and they'll buy a bunch and they'll cut it up and they'll sell it tingi-tingi. So with Mediclick, for example, the store that we piloted with, there was no pharmacy around them, there was no hospital, no medical center. There was a need to help the community, give them access to medicine. And we were able to increase their sales by 3x. It's the same thing with making the Sari-Sari store into a telco. This is one of the projects that we did in Catanduanes and we'll be doing in Basilan. Making the Sari-Sari store into a bank where people can withdraw, do remittances, is another pilot that we're doing. So there are a lot of non-FMCG products that we are going to be launching soon. But the foundation of the relationship is really the FMCG.
Do you see any competition coming from the hard discount distributors or stores? We have the likes that are also being supported by Asian Development Bank. It's all over. Those discounts are very attractive. Are the Sari-Sari stores able to compete or offer the same amount of discounted products that these hard discount or massive discount stores are able to offer?
So I think like every Filipino, I'm a fan of, of these discount stores. I think that they are driving the prices down. And we're also, we were the first investee of ADB Ventures in the Philippines. So we're kind of like sister companies with this, but they're like a lot, they've got a lot more funding. Is there an impact?
1,000 stores now in Luzon, is that right?
They're focused on Luzon, secondary streets. Their model is different though. One, it's a startup model wherein they are building rapidly and they are spending to provide discounts. So that their business model is dependent on massive scale.
And the expectation is, over time,
that they will be a monopoly, all right? And then once they are, that's when they can start increasing their prices a little bit, right? But, you know, Sari-Sari stores, lalo na the ones that we work with, are such great entrepreneurs that they're able to adapt to any environment. No water, no electricity,
no internet.
peace and order, no internet. And you will see a Sari-Sari store surviving and thriving, right? And that blows my mind. So if they can survive in the most remote, inhospitable areas, they can survive next to these big box stores. They can survive with these big discount stores as well, chains.
So one of the key insights you've shared with us, especially in your experience on the ground, is the resilience of these Sari-Sari stores. And yet, we also noted that there is a lack of support for some of these Sari-Sari stores, leading to their shutdown. So on a policy level, is there any kind of support that might help these small stores cope? Should there be, let's say, a VAT cut or digital subsidies or a new form of microfinancing to help make sure that they survive, and not just survive but thrive, especially as some level of uncertainty is expected to hit us, in the coming months?
That's a tough question because I'm not a policy expert, but I can tell you what the pain points of the Sari-Sari store are when it comes to government. One, there's no support. It would be great if there was some kind of safety net. Second is there are a lot of government regulatory agencies that go after the Sari-Sari stores, right? Sana we have an ecosystem and the government creates an environment wherein stores can grow to the point where they can and want to be legitimate, contributing, stable businesses. But we need to provide that kind of freedom for these small stores to grow to that point, and not kind of shakedown is a I don't know but you know what I mean, like
yes.
pressure on these stores to comply with every BIR regulation, every LGU permit. Allow them to grow to the point when they want to.
Certainly is worth looking into, and really looking forward to, all the big high-level policy making go down to the Sari-Sari store level. Ibba Bernardo, Chief Marketing Officer of Packworks, pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. We're looking forward to the new results of your study. And as Ibba pointed out, inflation isn't just measured in percentages. It's felt in every pack of noodles unbought, every bottle left on the shelf, and every Sari-Sari store barely hanging on. Now, before we go, we'll leave you with this thought from the president of the European Central Bank. When consumers change behavior en masse, it's not just a trend, it's a signal. That's from Christine Lagarde. And that is it for today's edition of Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top.